Hi, I'm Eddie of Eddie's Reef Aquaria. Today's video is on one of the recent acquisitions that I acquired, and it's called the Season's Greetings Montipora. It's a beautiful coral. I decided to put it on the substrate, and I'm going to talk about basic care requirements. People that follow me know that I just do a research on a specific coral that I acquire, but nothing technical. I hope you enjoyed the video, find it interesting, but before, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, hit the notification button and the like button. So let's take a deep dive into it and check it out. Okay, and here we are in front of the tank, focused to the Season's Greetings Montipora. Well, this is what I found out. First of all, of course, it's an SPS coral. In other words, small polyp stony coral. Now, the Season's Greetings coral is from the family, of course, of the Montiporas, and are predominantly colored like a neon green and red polyps like you see here. And this type of Montipora is an encrusting type. Now, the origin of these type of corals, of course, this is a frag from the mother colony. But the origin of them, it's Indo-Pacific. Now, by that I mean including the Fiji, Tonga, Solomon Islands, and of course, the Great Barrier Reef. Now, let's get into some specifics. When it comes to lighting, although recommendation is made for moderate to high, if properly acclimated, they will accept different PAR values, but should be started at a lower PAR, giving it a couple of weeks to acclimate to your reef tank. What I mean by this is that, and I know I've mentioned this previously on other videos, and I keep reiterating this on different types of videos, shall we call it. And this is a rule of thumb, and with the years I have experience and asking questions and research on and on, a coral properly acclimated can be placed in any part of your reef. And like I've said, I know I sound like a broken record, but like I've said in previous videos, I know that all of you checking out my videos also check out other creators' videos. And you will see that, like, for instance, Montipora Caps. They say that you need a lot of light and you put it on the top. Well, that's not necessarily true. If you go to other videos, you'll notice that some creators and some hobbyists have Montipora Capricornis on the lower quadrant, middle quadrant, and yet some, yes, on the upper quadrant. And that's just one example. But if you look further and you look to other videos, you will see that even when it comes to stick to aquaporos, they're supposed to be high in light, high in water flow, which is very important for those type of species of corals. The same thing, you'll see aquaporos coming out from the bottom. So, although I say these things, you know, when I do my research, but when you hear me talk about like light and water flow and all that in placement, that is a baseline. That's what I have found out, or I have known from research that I've done, looking at other videos and talking to LFS and other people. But that's strictly a baseline. Like I said on previous videos, what might be, let's say for this tank, let's say upper quadrant. For a coral, actually on somebody else's tank, it might be middle or lower quadrant. Why do I say that? I don't want to get technical, but you know, the type of light you're using, the intensity you have on it, how powerful that light is, and actually the height of the water to when it makes actual contact with the water, and then it refracts out to the whole column of the water. So that can vary. So when I say medium or low or high, that's strictly what I researched. That's a baseline. But you can check it out and the coral, you know, and put it on different levels and see how it behaves. And you'll eventually will see where it likes. As a matter of fact, when I finish this informative video, I'll talk about what happened with my Monti Cap. It has to do with light. But well, let's continue with this video and moving on. Then the next thing that I'm going to talk about is flow. Now, by my understanding and what I researched, these corals tend to need moderate flow, also considering the placement of the coral. By that, what I'm trying to explain is that if you have like other corals next to it or growth of other corals, you might have to move it, because then from moderate it might go to low type of flow. So it has to do with the positioning of the actual coral. And then moving on, let's talk about water chemistry. Now, when it comes to water chemistry, the main ones to be considered are, of course, DKH, alkalinity, Ca, calcium, and Mg, magnesium. These three components of water chemistry are very crucial and very important when it comes to reef keeping and corals. Now, when I say they should be within normal limits, people that follow me know what I'm trying to say when I say that. I mean, when I say within normal limits, I'm talking about like a normal DKH, like let's say 8 to 9.8. I usually keep my corals between 9.2 or 9.4 or 9.1. Ca calcium 430, 450. Right now I'm running a Ca up to 500, but that really is not something, you know, that's the end of the world or nothing. Matter of fact, higher calcium means higher growth, because all these corals contain, live and the building block of them, of course, is the skeleton of them. So they do need high calcium levels. And the mag, well, the mag can be 1230, 1240, 1420. Right now I'm running close to 1480. So when you hear water chemistry coming from me and I say within normal limits, that's basically what I'm talking about. You know, like the standard pH levels, nitrates, phosphates, and so on. Now, let's go on to the elements in your reef. Now, basically, with a normal population of corals in your reef, and I'm talking about it's not like overstocked. Regular water changes should and will replenish all the elements without the need of additional supplements. And what I mean by that is, like in this 40 gallon that I have here, when I take a full shot of the tank, you'll notice that, yeah, it's populated with corals, but I don't have it. I mean, when you follow and you look at other channels, you're going to see that there's other tanks that are completely stocked with corals. Now, the more corals you have, of course, they're going to bring in and consume more elements, more trace elements, calcium, alkalinity, and on and on. So it'll get to a point that then you'll notice by checking weekly, which is what I actually do, you'll notice that you not only will water changes do it, but you start to add supplements. And the first thing that I would do, I mean, I'm not doing this, it's just, I'm just giving you information out there. Then you just start with 2 parts, calcium and alkalinity. And if not, then of course you would have to then add magnesium. I'm not at that stage yet, because these coral, if you've been following me for quite a while, you notice that I keep adding corals, but they're small frags, and they haven't really grown exponentially. I mean that you don't even see the actual live rocks. So right now I can get away with doing water changes, and that in this scenario, in this tank, that's more than enough. When I do my water changes, which is usually on the weekends, and I check my parameters the following weekend before I actually do the water change, they're stable. So right now the population of this tank really is not consuming that much after a water change that I actually would need to replenish it with trace elements. So that's what I mean when I'm talking about elements in your reef. In my case, like I'll reiterate, basically, in my case, the population that you see of corals in my tank, normal water changes is more than enough. And the next topic, of course, feeding. Well, these type of corals, what I found out is that they actually do better doing broadcast feeding than actually doing target feeding. So for this coral, I would say broadcast feeding, and of course, phytoplankton or zooplankton additives, which of course, as you know, people that follow me, I use phytofees and I use reefroids and oyster fees. So like on Mondays, I apply phytofees, then Wednesday the reefroids, and then Fridays I put the oyster fees. So for this coral, but in general, all the corals, that's what I feed. But when it comes to target feeding, I really shouldn't be feeding this specific coral target feeding. Just do the broadcast feeding, because on Wednesdays is when I actually put the reefroids, and that's when I target feed certain corals. But then what's left, I go ahead and I just dump it in the tank, and that would be the broadcast feeding that I would apply to this tank. So that's where this coral will benefit more versus actually the target feeding. And then placement. Well, by research, it says that this coral should be in an SPS, family of the SPS, but Montipora. They're not as sensitive, shall we call it, as sticks. It says middle to upper. But in general, what I found out, this coral can be placed in any part of your tank. Again, like I mentioned before, with proper acclimation. So you would, at least I'd say within a week or 2 or 3 weeks, when you acclimate it. In this case, I've decided so far to keep it right there in the substrate. If I decide to bring it up, then I go ahead and do it. I just have to check the behavior of the coral. And if it does fine and is happy there, I leave it there. And then finally, level of difficulty, I would say this coral is really easy. But what I mean is this coral, Season's Greeting, a Montipora, actually would be a good starter coral if you're deciding to getting into SPS coral. So that's basically what I have when it comes to this coral. Now I'm going to bring up the camera and I'm going to explain what happened to the Monty Cap. So hold on one second. Okay, so here we are focused on the Monty Cap. It was doing great on the upper left-hand corner. If you follow me and you look for this coral, you'll notice the video that I did on it. But eventually I noticed that it started to get pale on one little section, like right here. Okay, right there, you see that little, it's like a little missing chunk. Okay, that little section started to get white. And by experience, when you see that, that's a sign that either it's a bacteria, a disease, or that it's too much light. But then when I got more closer to the coral, upon closer inspection, I noticed that it was getting pale. So something like that, like on a Monty Cap, what you have to do is not bring it higher, but bring it lower. So what I did is I went ahead and I placed it on this area on the tank. I had to glue it, you know, like little spot glue it, and there it should be doing better. I'm checking the behavior of it and see it looks like if it's starting to come back. But this is, for instance, what I'm talking about when it comes to corals. You have to learn the behavior of your corals. See how they're doing. Are they getting pale? Are they getting brighter? You know, do they like where they're at? And then in this case, that's what I had to do. I had to bring it down. Now, also what happened is upon, you know, maneuvering the coral and all that, a little piece came off. A little chunk of it came off. So what I did is I went ahead and I glued it the little piece, I glued it on a plug, and I have it on the substrate. So, you know, see if it does well, and I'm able to go ahead and have another frag of this coral. Let me bring it down, see the camera, see if I can aim at it. Okay. Okay. Yeah, let me go ahead. I'm going to pause the camera and I'm going to show you the little frag. So here's the little frag that I was able to recover. You know, it's a little dark. I've been playing around with ISOs, but on the camera. But that's the little piece that I, when it fell off, you know, when I was trying to place it on that area you saw now, that little piece fell off. So I went ahead and I glued it on a plug and see what happens. Well, that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video, found it educational and fun. If you liked it, hit the thumbs up and subscribe to my channel and hit that little notification bell. And like I say at the end of all of my videos, happy reefing, thanks for watching, and until next time, bye-bye.